All right, hello everybody. It's 3:30, so let's go ahead and get started. First off, welcome and thank you so much for coming to Go With The Flow Practical Dashboards, and also for coming to Tableau Conference as a whole. We are so thrilled to have you here, and it's really our pleasure to get to spend time with you. I'm Steph Dietzel. I'm an engineer at Tableau, and to start off this session, I would like everybody to look at the activities that I have up here on the screen and find something that you like to do. Or if you don't see something, think about what you would add. I've had some people say maybe fantasy football, sewing. Does everybody have something? Yeah? Okay. So I bet when you first started doing this, you are not as good at it as you are today. When we start learning things, we have to try new stuff, problem solve, iterate, and eventually we get better. And I'm going to argue that this process takes creativity. And everybody, you've picked an activity, so everybody here is already using creativity in our day-to-day lives. For me, what I would put up here is playing piano. And when I first started learning to play, I would be reading the notes in the music, and I would count out the keys and put down a Post-it. And I did this for every note in the song that I wanted to play. But I kept practicing, and now it's really fun. I can sit down and make up a song and just play for my own enjoyment, or play with my friends on a Saturday morning, and it just gives me this really great, sustained sense of joy from this creative practice that I have. And so why am I bringing this up? This is supposed to be practical. Why are we talking about creativity? Well, it's because the central idea of this talk is that making a dashboard is also a creative endeavor. All right, and so everybody here has already agreed that we are all creative people, so we can all do this. And if you're a little bit uncertain or you don't know where to start, there's a process that every person can use for any creative project. And it's called the creative process, and I'm pretty sure that was named by an engineer. So the creative process is where we don't worry about what's perfect or ideal or good, just start. You start making something, you try new ideas, you see what you like, you evaluate it, you try new ideas, and eventually, through iteration, converge on a final, beautiful result. And that's what we can apply to dashboards as well. So let's do it. What we want to be able to do is build dashboards using the creative process. Okay? And the easiest way to learn something is to just do it. So that's what we're going to do in this session. We're going to start from scratch, build our first dashboard, iterate, try new ideas, get our vision out into the page, and by the end, we'll have a final dashboard that we're ready to share on Tableau Public live with the world. So I'm not going to focus on visual design principles like color choice or type hierarchy or anything like that, because we have really great sessions for that, led in depth by our design professionals. Instead, what I want to talk about is how do we iterate effectively in Tableau? How do we try these ideas in a way that lets us get to our final dashboard quicker? Or we could just use the same amount of time and make 1 million more times dashboards. And that's great. Who doesn't want more dashboards? Okay, so this is just a collection of strategies and tips that have personally helped me when I am building dashboards in Tableau. So this is what I think will help us on this journey today. First, how do we compare different ideas? And once we've been able to do that, we know how to iterate. I want to talk more about layout so we can more easily get our dashboard vision into the product, into the actual thing that we're looking at. And finally, after that, we'll add interactivity because it's the most fun thing to do, and I like to have fun. And finally, because it is 2017, people use phones, and we'll talk about how to make dashboards look nice on mobile devices. Okay, are we ready? Yeah. Okay, so dashboards are a collection of worksheets. Worksheets show us data. What data are we going to use? Does anybody here like to travel? Okay, We're all gonna go. Anybody who didn't raise your hand, hold down the fort. I love to travel. This is a photo my husband took when we traveled to Gibraltar. This is looking out over the strait, and that's Africa in the distance. It's super sweet. Some people, when they travel, collect things like t-shirts or shot glasses or novelty snow globes. But for me, I like to collect data points. So this is a map showing every place that I've traveled to in the past 8 or so years. And it's just running off of this Google Sheet where every time I take a trip, I just log it in there and it shows up on my map. I've built these worksheets for us to use in our dashboard. I've got some filters set up here so we can see where I've gone last year. State is also an important category to me. I go to Arizona to visit my family pretty often. So that's the map view. I've also made us this bar chart, which compares the total time that I've spent in a destination with the number of trips it took me to accumulate that time. So we can see I did a study abroad, which was one really long trip, but just one. And next, I live in Washington, so I travel a lot there, but much more over just a bunch of weekends. We've got this text table because sometimes it's really helpful to have a very detailed view in your dashboard. Could be prepared for anything. And finally, I have this timeline which shows when I'm traveling. And we can even see the first time I came to Tableau conference. Okay, so we've got our data, we've got worksheets. Let's do it. I'll come down to the New Dashboard button, create a dashboard, and Tableau makes it really easy for me to get my visualizations into the dashboard. I can double click or drag and drop, and let's just bring everything in to start off and see what we got. Okay. Well, there we go. Guys, we've already done it. We just made a dashboard. Awesome work, team. Can we improve this? I think we can. What if I move this legend over here and then pick this up and move it there? Is this better than what I had before? No, maybe. I can't really remember what I had before, so let me just go check that out again. But what was I trying to compare it to? Okay, let me just redo. There has to be a better way to compare ideas, because this is too tedious, and straight up, the human brain is terrible at remembering things. So we need to make it easier. This is how I like to compare ideas in Tableau. I'll come down to the Sheet tab, bring up the context menu, and choose Duplicate. And this makes me a copy where I can try out an idea. So for here, maybe I want to make the timeline have more width available to it, because I think that looks pretty good. I'll bring those down. If I can click on my trackpad. There we go. Okay, that's one idea. I can try another. Maybe I'll go back to the start one. I'll duplicate the sheet. And here I can see that I can't really read anything in this details view, so I'll just get rid of it. And now I can quickly switch back and forth between my ideas and keep going. So here I like the more horizontal timeline. Here I like the simplicity. I can combine them. I'll make another copy and take this out. So now I can go back to any place along my journey and start from there if I want to try new ideas. And that's about it. This is how we compare ideas and iterate in Tableau. Has anybody spotted a problem with this approach? Okay. I'm making a lot of tabs. This could be a little problematic. I'm going to be dealing with tab explosion pretty soon. So how can I stay organized when I'm using this approach? I don't want these cluttering up my workspace, but I also don't want to delete them because I want the freedom to be able to go back and start from a new point. So I need a way to hide them away from my view, but still be able to get them back. And in Tableau, we can do this. You can hide something as long as you've used it somewhere, which is what gives you a reference to go unhide it. If you just could hide anything, there'd be no way to get it back. It'd be orphaned off in the ether, and you'd be sad, and we don't want that to happen. So in Tableau, we have something called stories. I'm using one right here to present. It's a walkthrough of worksheets and dashboards. And you'll notice that I have a bunch of hidden dashboards in here. This is the only place that they're used, so this is where they show up. And I have the option to unhide them. For something that I haven't hidden and I haven't used someplace, I don't have that option. So we can use this not to present, but in an alternative way to help us stay organized. So I'll create a new story, and now I can put anything that I'm done with into my story so that there's a reference to it that I can always get back to. I think we're done with the worksheets. Just double click and add these all in. Dashboard 16, dashboard 18, 17. We're done with all those. And now I have the option to hide them. Okay, but I don't really want to hide each of them individually because that would take forever. So instead, I'll come down to the Sheet tab, bring up the context menu, and choose Hide All Sheets, and just do a bulk hide. And now my workspace is nice and clear, and I can get back to these and unhide them if I need to later. So these are all the things that we've accumulated, and I can't get rid of them in case I need them later, but I don't want them in my view. And so I call this story a junk drawer, because that's kind of what it's like. Holds the stuff we can't get rid of, but also don't want to see. Okay, so that's iteration in Tableau. I like to duplicate the sheets to try new ideas quickly and be able to compare them by switching back and forth between the tabs. And then to stay organized and keep my workspace clear, I create a junk drawer story, put everything I'm done with in there, and then hide all the sheets. Okay. Well, now that we've got that, let's move on to layout and talk about how we can improve the layout of our dashboard and bring our ideas to this view. So let's do a couple things. Maybe I think the map title is really a little bit descriptive. I don't need that. I'll hide the title. I'll do the same thing with the timeline. And this length versus frequency, I think that describes the axes, so I don't really need it anymore. I'll hide that too. But I do want an overall title to give me some context about what's happening in this dashboard. So I can do a couple things. I can show the dashboard title in this checkbox. Or I can come to the dashboard menu and show the title from here. Okay. Dashboard 19. It's a great title, but I think we can improve. Does anybody have any ideas? All right, Steph's Trips. Excellent. Okay, so this is starting to look pretty good. Maybe I'll bring this down a bit. Okay, so I look at this dashboard and I notice that every piece of content is right up against another one. There's no gaps between them, and they don't overlap at all. And in Tableau, we call this tiled mode, where every piece of content is like a tile in a surface area, and they fill the entire dashboard space. And this is the default mode in Tableau. But what if I wanted to float something above that tiled surface area? Well, I can do that too with a mode called floating. So if I select this legend, and I'll bring up the context menu, I can choose floating. And now, this is not a tile in the dashboard surface area. It's floating above everything else, and it's completely independent. I can move it wherever I want, and that's great. So it's independent, and that lets me do whatever I want with it, but also the caveat is that it doesn't know what's beneath it. So if you're gonna have a dashboard that resizes or changes a lot, It's just one thing to look out for when you're using floating. So I'll put this down here, perhaps by this nice bar chart. But what is floating really good for? Why would I want to use this mode? For me, my dashboard is all about the data, and I want to give the most room for my visualizations. And maybe these filters, I don't think they deserve this whole entire vertical column just for those. So I'd like to use floating to put my more supporting content over the relevant visualization that it goes with. So let's do it. I can pick this up, open the context menu, and choose floating. Okay, but the context menu is kind of tedious. I don't really like to use it that much. I think there is a better way. And what I'm about to say is my favorite feature in Tableau. This is probably the most important thing that you could learn in this session. I want everybody to know about it right away so you don't wait years to learn it like I did. Okay? Ready? The Shift key converts between tiled and floating. It is amazing, okay? So I've got this floating filter. If I hold down or it's a tiled filter, I'll hold down the Shift key, and when I move it, it becomes floating. I can do it again. I've got tiled, hold down the Shift key, and it becomes floating. Maybe you guys don't believe me that this is super useful, judging by the room. But this is awesome. You don't have to open the context menu and change between modes. Just hold down Shift key, and you can play around really, really quickly. It's legit great. Okay, starting to look good, but one last thing that bothered me, I had to move each filter individually, but I think of them as a group. They're both filters, they look the same, they're next to each other, they go with the map. I want to be able to treat these as a unit. And so in Tableau, I can do this with something called a layout container. Layout containers let you group items. We've actually already got one here, and you can tell because it has this dark blue color. Dark blue means layout container. All right, let's check these out. So I can pick this up and move them, and they both move. All right, so there are a couple flavors. First, we have the vertical layout container like we have here, and then also have a horizontal version. So I'll bring out one of those. It's just down here, the dashboard objects area. Drag and drop it in. All right, dark blue, looks good. Now I want to put some stuff into it. I'll just pick this up, and I see the dark blue. I can drop it in. I'll do it again with this. How do I know I'm dropping something into a layout container and not just putting it off to the side? The dark blue. So here's dark blue. It's awesome. Nope, this is not what we want. So I'll put it here. And now I can treat these two visualizations as a group. But how do I pick up that container? I already know it's there because I put it in. Here we could click in the blank space, and that was great. But there's no blank space here. How do I get to it? Well, a couple of options. I can open the context menu and choose Select Layout Container. And that selects the container that holds that object. Or, if I hate the context menu, which I do, I can look at this mover, gripper, tab thing and double click. And that is a really useful shortcut for selecting the layout container. So we've got the blank space, we've got the context menu, and we have double clicking. So now I can move these as a group. I'll put them maybe at the top. And what would I want to be able to do with these? Well, maybe I want them to have a specific proportion, like 1/3 and 2/3. So I can grab this, and if you notice, I'll come to where about 1/3 is, and Tableau will snap that divider there for me. That's pretty useful. But what if I want them to be just all the same size? I could move this to be a 1/2 and 1/2, or I I could select the layout container and bring up the context menu and choose this new option called Distribute Evenly. And this is great. It makes everything just be the same size inside that layout container. If I add more things in, it keeps that mode. Okay, so we learned about tiled versus floating. We learned about layout containers, letting you treat items as a group. Can we combine these concepts? Yeah, that was a leading question. We totally can. I'll select this layout container and then hold down the Shift key and make it floating. And now I can make this whatever size I want and move it right about there. This is starting to look pretty good, but I don't really like the way the map goes through the gap between these filters. Do you guys like that? Nah. So what I'll do is I'll select this layout container, and in the Layout tab, we have some new tools in 10.4. We've got tools for borders, backgrounds, and padding, which let you put buffer around any piece of content on your dashboard. So I'll give this guy a border. I'll change the background so it doesn't have that gap showing through between them. That's starting to look better. Well, maybe I'll also distribute this evenly so that it's aligned nicely within that space. And finally, I think that these are a little bit too close to this border. What can I do? I'll select that layout container, and now I can use these padding tools. Outer padding gives you buffer outside of a border, and inner padding gives you buffer inside of a border. So I'll change this to be maybe 10 pixels, and that looks great. Okay, is this done? Almost. What's going on here? Right, this is a floating legend, and my bar chart expanded to go underneath it, and just didn't know. So I'll move this to maybe a safer place over here. All right, that layout looks great to me. Okay, move it here. I think we're done with dashboard 20. I'll move it out of my workspace and hide all these sheets. All right, and that's layout. We've got tiled mode, which is everything fills the surface of the dashboard. Floating, where you can float things over that tiled surface area. Layout containers, useful for grouping your items. You know you've got one when you see the dark blue. You can distribute evenly across them, and you can use the common proportion slider, and also double click to select one of those. And the new spacing tools let us use padding, borders, and shading to really tweak the layout to be exactly how we want it, down to the last pixel. And what was the most important part of this section? Shift, yes. Shift converts between tiled and floating, my favorite. Okay, so that's layout. Now is the most fun section. We're adding interactivity. I like it because it's fun, but also, you know, interactivity lets your audience drill down and explore the data and create their own deeper insights as well. But I like it because it's fun. So let's add some interactivity to this dashboard. We've got a couple things already. We've got filters. But these only apply to the map. Wouldn't it be great if this could apply to my whole dashboard? Yeah, okay, let's do that. So I'm going to open the context menu and draw your attention to this item here, Apply to Worksheets. This lets us control which worksheets are affected by this filter. Currently, we've got only the map, but I can say all of the worksheets that are from my travel data source should be filtered with this year filter. And so when I select this, the filter applies to my whole dashboard. Cool. And have you seen this little guy? Clears the filter. It's a nice shortcut. I like that one. Okay, let's do it again, but this time a little bit fancier. This is only one dashboard, but imagine I had a bunch of dashboards for this data source, and I didn't want the filtering to get cross-contaminated between them. So in this option, I'm going to choose selected worksheets to choose specifically which ones get filtered. So this brings up a dialog, and now I can choose exactly which ones should be filtered. I'll choose all on this dashboard and hit OK. And now, if I filter this down, everything is also affected. OK, that's great. So filtering is great for looking, drilling in and seeing something in more detail. But what if I want to see some marks emphasized, but within their larger overall context of the data? In Tableau, we call this highlighting, and we can do it from this legend. So right now, when I click on these categories, nothing happens. But I've got this little icon here. It's a highlighter pen, and when I toggle this, it will create a relationship between the legend categories and the marks and highlight them. There we go. So this lets me really call out these marks in the greater context of what's going on in the data. Okay. So we've got filtering with filters, highlighting on the legends. But Tableau is all about data, so I'd really like it if this data could drive the interactivity in my dashboard. And there's a really easy way to use this bar chart to filter down everything else in the view. So when I select Washington, I want to see Washington in the map. Look over here, and in the controls, I have this little funnel, and it says Use as Filter. And so that we'll use this visualization to filter everything else. So I'll toggle it on, and there we go. And this does work with multi-select. Okay, great. So that's one option for how we might want users to interact with this dashboard, where we use the bar chart to filter down other visualizations on the page. So I'll call this one filtering. Okay, but I also really liked the highlighting option where we get to preserve the overall context of what's happening. So let's see what we can do with that. I'll make a copy, and in this one, I'm not going to use the filtering. We've already got highlighting here in the place category, but I want to control that at a greater level of detail. So we've got the highlighter icon here. Let me draw your attention to another highlighter up here in the toolbar. When I click this, it gives me a list of all the fields in my data source, and I can choose which ones I want to be highlighted on. So we've already got place, but if I choose state, that lets me highlight just the marks in that state. And again, it works from multi-select as well. So that's another option where you can have emphasis, but without losing the overall context. So we'll call this one highlighting. Okay. Can you guys help me choose which one would be better for this dashboard? Okay, we've got filtering. Does anybody like filtering? Yeah, okay. Highlighting. Anybody like highlighting more? No, okay. Filtering is coming in for a solid win. We're going to go with this. This, I think, is our final dashboard. Are we ready to publish this? Not quite. So let's quickly recap interactivity. Filtering, we used the quick filters, applied them to all the worksheets that we wanted to, and also used the viz as a filter. For highlighting, to preserve that context, we used the legend and also the highlighting menu. But we really need to make sure that this looks okay on devices, because people are probably going to want to look at this on a phone. So what do? Let's go over here. What does this look like on a tablet? I don't know. Tableau can help me figure it out. I'll come up to this button here called Device Preview. And when I turn it on, I get another bar across the top here. And this shows me I'm looking at a tablet, a specific model, and I got this black bar which tells me where this dashboard would be on the tablet screen. And I can see that this is okay, but it's not great. Like down here, it's got a little bit of scrolling, a little bit of gap here. I don't like that. I want it to be perfect. So what can I do? Well, I can come up here and I can click Add Tablet Layout. And now I'm designing my tablet-specific experience for this dashboard. We've got some size options. The default, which is the original size, Fit All, fits it to the screen, and Fit Width, which is useful for long scrolling dashboards. My favorite strategy is just to fit it on the screen and adjust. So this looks pretty good. I can scroll through a couple models and see it's still looking okay. And I've got my original here, still fine. We're only modifying the layout. So I think this is okay, but for tablets, people do them mostly in landscape, but sometimes in portrait. Let me just check and make sure that's all right. So I can use this little toggle here to check the other device orientation. And I can see that I'm starting to get worried about my floating content kind of colliding with Hawaii in this case. So because the dashboard is going to be changing size, I don't know exactly how it's going to be. I'm not as interested in using floating context, or floating in this case. So I'll pick up my layout container, hold down the shift to bring it back into tiled mode, move it over here, and I'll bring this guy, hold the shift key, and put him right into there. And I see the dark blue, so I know it's going to be right there. Okay. I think this will work for both portrait and landscape. It's looking okay. Great. So that's a tablet. Let's do the same thing with a phone. What would this look like on a phone? Well, here's the original. I can choose device type, phone. And again, I get this black outline which tells me where the phone screen would be with this dashboard. And we can see that it is basically horrendous. I am not into like the map piece. Okay, so let's try the same strategy. I'm going to add a phone-specific layout, fit it to the screen, and we can see that this one is going to need more work. So on the tablet, we have rearranged some things. Now we can also remove them. So this legend, I'll just get rid of it. This bar chart, I'm never going to be able to read these axes. I can just take it off. If I change my mind, it's right over here. I can bring it back in, no problem. And finally, these filters, again, aren't going to work. So maybe I'll take a horizontal layout container, I'll put it across the top, and I can move these into it. Dark blue, drop it in. Again, dark blue, drop it in. And let's see, I'll bring my timeline up to the top. That's looking pretty good. And maybe make the maps just a little bit bigger. Okay. Well, there's a little bit of a gap right here. How can I fix that? I don't really like it. I'll choose distribute evenly. And can I tell you guys kind of a tangent story about distribute evenly? Okay, this is my favorite, so it'll be short. I was super frustrated building a dashboard that had some things across the top. I just wanted it to be the right thing. So I told my neighbor, he's super smart, he told it to our interns. The interns built it for their hackathon. They did the entire feature. They were amazing interns for web authoring and in desktop. They demoed it, everyone loved it. We put it in the product. Our team rallied, reorganized the layout code so it's easier to test, and we can ensure that it's the right quality. And now it's something that I can share here with you guys today and not be frustrated with it, but be super excited. So that's one of my favorite Tableau development stories. It's got everything. Interns, hackathon, it's all great. Yeah, and I think this lets us give a much more reasonable mobile view of this dashboard. So what's important about this is that this is just one dashboard still. I've only changed the layout. So When I go to this URL on a large screen, I'll get my original view. When I go to it on a tablet, I'll get the tablet view. And when I go to it on a phone, I'll get this phone view. It's one dashboard. Filtering and highlighting, they work the same across all of them. Okay, let's check it out. Device Designer is the name of our feature. It came out in version 10. It lets us really easily preview what dashboards will look like, and the default is your original master copy. And then my favorite strategy for mobile views is just fit it on the screen and maybe tweak it a little bit. I'm going to recommend a different session if you want to make really advanced, customized mobile views and learn more about that in detail. Okay, I think we're ready to publish. I'm going to go up to Server, Tableau Public, and let's save this. Okay, do we have any questions? Yes.
So for the phone view, is there would you recommend always using generic and then just checking the other phones? Is that pretty much a standard view?
So the question is on phone, what should we do with the specific devices? I like to build it in the generic phone, and then you can easily scroll through them like we did with the iPads models and see what it would look like on like a larger phone or a smaller phone, and just try it out and see how it goes. Okay, why is this not? Do I even have internet? Okay, well, I'll try and sign it one more time. Otherwise, I've been having flaky internet, so we can skip this part. Nope. Okay. Always happens with a demo. Okay. Done. Oh, crap. All right. So, use your imaginations. That was beautiful. We published it up to Tableau Public. We could share that URL. If you go to it on a phone, you see our phone view. You go to it on a large screen, you see our original view. Excellent. And what did we do to get there? We compared our ideas quickly and efficiently. We modified our layout to fit our creative visions. We added interactivity for fun and greater insight. And finally, we made nice device versions so that people could enjoy our dashboard no matter where they're looking at it from. The only thing left to say is the final idea of this talk, that making a dashboard is a creative endeavor. And everybody, we're all creative, and I hope that some tip from this will at least be helpful for you on your journey. They've been helpful for me, and I just wanted to be able to share them with you in this talk. So here's my contact information. This session is repeated tomorrow at 11:45. And if you want to know more about visual design best practices, I recommend Design with the User in Mind. And if you want to know more about advanced mobile dashboard design, On the Road Again. Finally, I would really like your feedback about this talk, and you can leave that for me in the session survey. So thank you all very much.